Hello, sharks.
Sharks.
So it's about specializing for that market that is massive and growing.
And we want to help people to achieve a universal basic income.
I think a minute is impossible to get everything.
You have a minute? Go ahead and tell us, what are you building?
We know that the space is something that people are going to be getting into. We're just going to keep iterating and building the best user experience.
It would really just be a supportive space to have fun.
And that's why we're building the first AI lifestyle companion.
Take credit for the work you've done.
We're becoming a spacefaring civilization and we're going back to the moon. So me and my co-founder at Melagen Labs decided to make a space shield.
This is awesome.
We were actually just on Shark Tank a few weeks ago, and Mark Cuban invested in us.
Nowadays, Shark Tank is the practice for the feedback loop. Hello, hello. Hi. Welcome everybody to episode 6 of the Feedback Loop here at Free Agency in New York City. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Shaveen. I'm the founder and CEO of Free Agency and also the host of the Feedback Loop. Let me start by talking about what in the world is the Feedback Loop for those who are watching for the first time or who haven't been. The essence of a lot of early stage, as we'll get into a little bit too before we start pitches, is so much about founders finding their pitch, finding their story, their narrative. And at the end of a fireside chat with Jenny Fielding, we decided to just ask the crowd, hey, are there any founders who want to pitch Jenny, who, if you don't know, is an investor in New York City and in tech broadly? And the resonance of founders getting up on stage, being brave, giving their pitch, and getting raw and unfiltered feedback, both with the crowd in the moment, those founders afterwards, everything was just worth tapping into in a bigger way. And so pretty much every week since, with a few exceptions, we've been running the feedback loop, built to give a batch of founders a minute to pitch, and then a bunch of unfiltered and honest feedback that hopefully create an inflection point as to their story, as to their narrative that they take forward from there. Every week, it's me and a guest venture investor to give that feedback, hopefully creating an inflection point for these founders on a move forward basis. So that's the feedback loop in a nutshell. Before we get into the content of it all, let's maybe do kind of brief intros. Again, very briefly, Shaveen, CEO for Agency, Hollywood-style representation for tech talent. That means a bunch of different things, but I think the most interesting and relevant is that I see a lot of these pitches from the talent's point of view, because although money is an investment that people make into startup founders, so too is time. And with me today, super excited to have Mike Ma, who is starting a fund, has been in venture for a long time, and also was an operator beforehand. So much context to bring to the table. But let me let you introduce yourself a little bit to the crowd.
Sure. Thanks for that. I'm excited to be here. My name is Mike Ma. I'm managing partner of Sidecut Ventures. It's a new fund, and I back coachable pre-seed superheroes. So it's something where we deploy advice first, capital second. So we're going to do some today. And the superhero parts, I'm looking at parts that I think that are going to be important for the world. So theses on fintech around economic mobility, ed tech around education for marginalized communities, and healthcare for all, and digital health for all. So that sort of is the areas where I like to look at. And I'm in the same bucket as you all, where I'm learning to tell my story and trying to find a way to make sure I have both an impact and memory. So I think it's going to be a great hour of us just learning together. I'm really excited for our time together, and thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure and privilege to have an audience.
Well, listen, I think the privilege of the feedback that you're going to give to these founders and to the crowd is going to be worth the exchange. But as you brought up, you're kind of in the moment yourself. Talk to us about pitching a fund, right? And not only do you have to pitch to raise the fund, not only do you have to pitch founders to take kind of that literal check, but there's a lot in building a fund where some of the stuff that in the prior jobs you've had working within venture, the reputation that's already built in, that happens over the course of many years, or investments that have already played out, things like that, you're rebuilding somewhat for the first time, obviously with relationships as your advantage that you already have throughout your career. But what has the pitching process been like, for Sidecut?
Sure. I would say it's been, first, it's just a mode switch. Like anytime you have to do something new, you have to think about pronouns, like not us or they. But I think that the two things that I think most about are, one, how do you capture the imagination of the person you're trying to reach, but also manage some of the risk. And it's one of the things that I've and my own pitching have had to try and get from one side to the other, where I'm trying to show that like I'm differentiated, that this is something that the world needs, and I believe this with my heart and soul, just like I think you as founders believe in so much of what you do with your heart and soul. Like I believe to my core that the relationship between advice and capital is broken. Having been an accelerator MD, having been a founder, 92% of VCs say they do value add. 61% of founders say it's below average. So somewhere we suck. At the same time, it's about de-risking. So just telling the story, and the story I tell to try to de-risk when I talk to people is, I'm an emerging manager, but I'm not a new institutional allocator. I've deployed capital for other institutions and big name LPs for 4 years. And my thesis, I'm looking to institutionalize. I've written my own checks around for 22 checks in the last 2 years. Look, there's still risk, but the goal is to try and capture the imagination and protect someone's wallet. And I think that's no different than when I was an operator as well, that you're trying to show that there's a huge curve and upside, and you're about to hit this huge inflection point. As an investor, we're looking at risk. And trying to walk that fine line is something that you may dial from pitch to pitch or investor to investor, or even minute to minute, depending on how you read the room. So that's been the biggest thing that I've been thinking through, and hopefully there's a nugget in there for you all.
Well, I think, just to reflect something back that I heard as a nugget, you put it as, kind of de-risk and, kind of like versions of not protecting downside, but showing there's some de-risk downside protection, but then still upside. And I like the way you threaded that needle of talking about, kind of, I'm that emerging fund manager, which has all of the upsides that we hear about emerging fund managers. You're implying, hey, I'm doing this for the first time. I'm going to be high effort. I'm going to build these relationships to count for a fund that I'm building a reputation of. And yet, by the way, I don't have the typical downsides of that emerging manager where I've been there and I've already seen behind some of the traps that someone would fall into. So there's a nice threading of the needle. If I had a lot of money, I'd give you some.
Thank you. I would take it. So.
With that, let me just recap on how this is exactly going to work. The founders are going to get up here. They're going to give their 1-minute pitch, no demo, no deck, but instead the thing that lives inside of them around the narrative and the story that they're building. And then again, some Q&A and some feedback on both concept and pitch itself. So with that, I am super excited. Let's welcome, with a round of applause, our very first founder for the day. All right, tell us, what is your name?
Okay, my name is Francesco.
Francesco, before you start, let me just say I've chatted with Francesco, so he has a little bit of pre-built feedback already. But then at the last event, when he was chatting with me about what he's building, I said, I'll give you the rest of my feedback and the ideas I have for you, but only on stage. So that's why I taunted him to being up here. So again, you have a minute. Are you ready to tell us about what you're building and then receive some feedback?
I'm ready.
All right, tell us, what are you building?
So my name is Francesco. I'm co-founder and CEO of Necto. Buying data nowadays, it's an incredibly unclear and slow process. Just getting a quote requires 2 to 4 weeks. And data quality is not guaranteed, as well as the pricing calculation is unclear. It's not transparent. It's completely opaque. Other startups, other companies that are trying to collect data, and they do it from publicly available data. So startups that want to train LLMs are trying to do that from publicly available data, and they can actually get lawsuits for that, for copyright infringement. We are trying to introduce ordinary people like you, individuals, inside of the equations by using an app. We basically enable users to connect directly with with products and services to share their data directly to data buyers. With that, they can get access to fresh and continuous data every day, a stream of data.
That's about a minute.
Okay, thank you.
You want to go first?
Sure. I mean, I gave you the background as a marketer. So the first thing when you said data, I just went into my Axiom customer list data, direct mail, DMA. So it took me it took me about 30 seconds to like, oh, we're talking about provisioning data for primarily Gen AI and making sure that those rights, or maybe I don't have it right. I mean, you're talking about, so maybe the feedback I would say is, it took me up 30 seconds to lock in. Data is a very big concept. And as quickly as you can get me to the little nook of the mansion of data you're talking about, the small room that you are going to be uniquely positioned to win, that would be better. But
Yeah,
you
so let's
started to
dig
get
into
there.
that a little bit, because that's the exact thing that, having previewed this pitch a little bit, I think I'm excited by. So zoom in for us. Talk about what data means in this context literally, and how the transaction is going to look for the users on the actual user experience side of things.
Yeah, so it's really hard to explain both the parts, but the most important one is that ordinary people can connect with products like Spotify and Fitbit, Apple Health, and a bunch of other services and physical products, and they basically streamline data directly to data buyers. But it's not only Gen AI startups. It's other companies as well, but right now the market, companies like Nielsen, they focus on B2B generally, and we're trying to introduce individuals inside of the equation, just because they get businesses' data and they don't really point to private data, which people don't really share.
So I think this is, again, where I have a little bit of the advantage of the pre-pitch, and he showed me his prototype. So I'm going to give feedback, but also, kind of edit what I'm about to talk about in terms of what I think the product is really doing. The key for a consumer is they are logging in and giving access to some of the apps he mentioned, a Spotify, a Fitbit, all of these wellness apps that automatically gives them access to potential buyers of that data. Gen AI is one example, but there might be marketers that want that data, et cetera. And easily through that application, consumers are going, here's what I have. And then buyers get to either presuppose offers or receive kind of proposals as to, hey, I want to sell you this data, and creating a little bit of a marketplace, but also, I'd say, an easily integrated experience for consumers to kind of offer up and then have their data acquired. Is that a good encapsulation?
Yeah. That's pretty much
it. And here's my thought, and maybe this is some feedback for everyone too. Like, I think a minute is impossible to get everything. The goal is to be compelling and not complete. Right. So you went really deep into the problem. I just look, all you had to do is just give me the idea that all the apps that need to be really require permission and a clear data. It was great. You're talking about a data marketplace for variety, and you could highlight, and maybe you could just highlight the New York Times suing OpenAI, but then Fox Publishing and making it like, look, this is a one big loud problem that's happening at all sorts of levels, from the enterprise down to individuals releasing Fitbit. The parts that I also didn't hear is just, who are you? Why are you starting this? Why are you starting this company? Why are you this is a very statistically a dumb way to make money. So why are you doing it? Just give me a little bit so I can ask questions. What's attraction? And the goal, I think, in a minute is to pepper things so I ask good questions and I want to lean in for the next 4 or 5 minutes, not to tell me everything in one. So I don't know how. So I'll shut up and let that.
Yeah, tell us a little about I like the portion. Tell us a little bit more about the you portion of this, because I think that's something that a lot of founders discount how relevant that can be because they want their product to drive everything. But give us the you that you're selling.
Yeah, well, the story is that me and my brother started a healthcare company 1 year ago, and we were trying to do something, but the product wasn't really a product; it was a feature. So we made this decision to pivot completely. And given my interest for fintech in general, and his interest for data, we decided to integrate both things together. And we decided to add this feature of integrating users inside of the app directly, because they're not really being compensated for what they're producing every day. And we want to help people to achieve potential in the future. And this is the long-term vision, a universal basic income, which is
How
really
did you
hard to
discover this particular way to solve it, though? Because there are so many people who could have stumbled across the same, kind of vague problem. What was the real moment at which you said, hey, this needs to exist in the format that I want it to exist in?
We were trying to find a way to make people connect. Initially, before pivoting, we were finding a way to make people connect wearables devices with the app, but it's not really easy if you don't give an incentive. So we decided to add money inside of the equation, and that's how it
has to be how he starts his pitch, right? Because it's kind of like, I was building something, I experienced the pain.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and then you basically are telling a story from laddering up from the Fitbit. This goes all the way to the New York Times, right? So, but this is where we started, and that gives me the question to start asking you, your brother, your tests and experiments, what your 0 to 1 traction looks like, because that's something I can start grabbing on to extrapolate towards, billions of TAM, et cetera, and all that good stuff. But that may be a great way to start that pitch.
And I didn't really have the time to talk about the dynamic pricing algorithm that we actually we don't need a quote. That's the whole point. We calculate the price instantly for businesses to acquire data directly. They don't
And so
need
this
to
is
wait.
the part that I think is like really hard, that is going to continue to be hard for you. But I think if you figure this part out, is going to be magic. When you say that, again, you showed me your app, and we don't, we want this to be pitch feedback raw from just the words being spoken. But one of the things I got to see is when you say dynamically priced, what you're really trying to say is, as a user, you don't have to do a lot of work to offer up and sell your data. You're going to log in, be integrated with all of the apps where your data matters, and people who want to purchase that data are going to create a marketplace dynamic by buying and bidding on your data. And if you can say that, and again, you're going to be able to show it, and you also have a good design mind, so your app is also very clean, and it feels like it's Robinhood in some sense. So you have those advantages, but when you can't show that off, you have to find a way to still talk about that experience, and that'll allow people to really understand the value prop. But that's all the time we have. Good job.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
It's super interesting because I think when someone's working in, I'm going to call it like a boring area, let's call it like data brokerage, it's much harder to get people to realize the potential of a pitch, right?
I love that. I love this business, and
Yeah.
and having, I'm an old ad tech person. So
Yeah.
look, I suffered some of this firsthand, and taking, PII and trying to monetize it. I think sometimes we forget some really basic things though. It sounds like he shipped product.
Right.
It sounds like there are live human beings who are provisioning data and saying, yes, here's my 6-mile run, and take credit for it. You did the work. Just, hey, my brother and I, we did this, we launched this product. Okay, that's news. And, take credit and start telling us some of this. It doesn't have to spend a long time. He talked a lot about the pivot before the product. Like, I'd rather hear the pitch. Here's how we got the product. We did 7 pivots before, but it's live. You can see it. You want to download it right now? Like that. Take credit for the work you did, because I know how hard you all work on building this. Just let us know we're not that smart.
Yeah. And I think it's a good call to action for everyone to consider, hey, do I have a hidden asset that for some reason I don't recognize as an asset? Then you might need to talk to a mentor, a friend, whatever, and go, do you see something that I've been doing that I'm for some reason not telling everybody else about? Because you might have some insecurity or some uncertainty at play. Let's welcome our second founder up. How you doing? What's your name?
I'm Caroline Strelka.
Awesome. Caroline, are you ready to tell us about what you're building and then receive some feedback?
Sure.
You have a minute. What are you building?
Thank you. Okay. So I'm Caroline Strelka. I'm the co-founder of Overplay. Overplay is a patented no-code platform that lets anyone turn any video into a game in minutes and share it with the world for free. And so we were actually just on Shark Tank a few weeks ago, and Mark Cuban invested in us. So I think we're doing something pretty special. At least Cubes, thinks it's pretty cool, as well as a few others. Yeah. And so basically, the way it works is that you could take any video. So we call them snackable videos. So it's like TikTok for gaming. So take a 30 to 45 second video, load it into the platform. You're just dragging and dropping swipes, taps, driving, jumping, basically any input that the device can take. You can actually make it into an input in your game. And you're just dragging and dropping it at that part in the video where you want a tap to happen, a swipe, whatever. And then you're adding in interactive animations, which you're also dragging in, sound effects, music. And the way that it works, the gameplay.
About a minute.
Okay.
You'll tell us more. Don't worry. Good job.
Good job.
What was your name again?
Caroline.
So Caroline is telling us, I think, that nowadays Shark Tank is the practice for the feedback. That's what I'm.
Yes,
That's what I'm
exactly.
hearing. Yeah,
You know you
congratulations
made
on the
it.
deal,
You
by
know
the
you-
way.
you know
Thank you,
you've
thank
made
you.
it.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Only on episode 6, suddenly we became the higher end.
Yeah.
So I have so many questions, but also, I'm excited about this one. Let me start, the portion of this that you think of as, let's call it technology versus go-to-market innovation,
Mhm.
because I think I can tell you said patented as part of your
Yeah.
pitch. So I can tell you highly prize the technology part, but I'll tell you everything that I thought was exciting about what you're building has to do with how easily shared it is. And, the video is going to turn into this moment, not just a video. Now I can turn whatever moment that video has into an experience.
That's right.
But how do you balance
Mhm.
what you think is important in that equation?
Yeah, we actually think that there's a positive, like a virtuous cycle where you have people who are making games, playing games that other people made, and then telling their friends and family about those games, and then making more games. So it's a virtuous cycle. So the technology where you're playing the game into existence, we think is really valuable. And it's kind of actually cool to actually have this patent when like YouTube doesn't have it, TikTok doesn't have it, like our little team has that. And we also have something else patented too. We have seamless transition between portrait and landscape mode, which is also one of these things where it's like, all of our patents were like based on the Pythagorean theorem, which is like so crazy. So like we were thinking about gaming in a whole new way along through the lens of film. And so we actually think that what we did was pretty special. And in the beginning, people were like, oh, why are you bothering with the patent and whatever? But now in like this tighter like venture atmosphere that we're in, everyone's asking, and we're like, what's your defensible moat? And we're like, well, we do have these patents, you know, so.
One more question for me on that. The user plays an experience.
Yeah.
Does that require them to download the initial platform or download something to play the experience?
Right now, the only way to play Overplay is on Overplay. It's a the Overplay app, we have it for iOS and Android, and the only way to make an Overplay is also to make it on
Singular
Overplay right now. Yeah. But we're raising right now because one of the things that we're going to do is wrap the technology into an API that then could be integrated onto other apps and websites. So like now, say NBA.com could take all the basketball games that happened yesterday and make it into playable highlights reels, like game playable highlights reels on NBA.com.
That's how you got Cubes to invest, isn't it?
Yeah, I did.
I'm calling him that from now
the
on.
Mavericks in the pitch. Yeah.
One more before I pause talking for a second. Discovery. When you said you are going to build an API, I started to think, okay, really, you're thinking tech platform. Is Discovery going to be part of the app experience as well? As in, you might send me a video experience or what's it called? An overplay?
Overplay.
An overplay. I don't know if you're calling that item an overplay.
Yeah.
You might send me an overplay, and I might play one and send one back to you. Is there a Discover feed in your vision of the future, a For You page of other experiences too?
Yeah, you can. You're being fed. Just like TikTok, you're being fed games that are relevant to you. So we do have an AI component where it's like, oh yeah, you know, I like to play games on geography or sports, or like I'm really into badminton, whatever, you know. And now you're actually playing a game, and it's people can make games, you know, like in their backyards, you know, they're throwing a frisbee to their dog, or it could be like professionals, or also we think it's going to be transformative for advertising. So like commercials can now be made interactive.
Yeah. That was why. Two questions that kept going. It's like, one, who is this woman? How'd you come up with that? I think this is genius as a recovering marketer. So I'd love to hear that story. But then also a little bit about revenue model. As a, again, former brand person, that's where my mind goes, but I never want to assume that. So can you say a little bit more about revenue model and how you've tested that? And then how the heck did you come up with this? It sounds genius.
I'll tell you how we came up with it first. So I used to work at Sesame Street, and I ran digital media business development for Sesame. And my co-founder for Overplay, he ran interactive production. And so we would make all sorts of crazy stuff for kids. So like Sesame's very first apps, but then I also did all the streaming deals with Netflix, Hulu, YouTube. So streaming, console gaming, like crazy stuff, because everyone wants to work with Sesame. So we were doing stuff with Qualcomm and Intel around AR and VR, like cutting edge stuff. But yet we're at Sesame Street, which is a nonprofit, right? So Goodness and Light, Elmo, but doing crazy cutting edge technology stuff. And Dan, my co-founder, he's just one of these brilliant guys that, would sit in the corner of the room, not say anything at a meeting for like the whole meeting. And then the very last thing, he'll say something and we're like, Dan spoke. That means we have to change everything because the dude's brilliant. And so, but one day he comes up to me and he's like, I think I came up with a way to turn any video into a game. And I was like, everyone will use this. And so, so the way that it kind of came about is that he used to watch POV mountain biking videos on YouTube, and he felt himself like doing this,
steering.
And so he's like, oh, I think I can make this into a game. And so
snowboarder. So this is kind of like some of this goes through my head.
Exactly. So now, like if you think about DDR Guitar Hero, where the goal of the games is to match the action you see on the screen, that's what all of Overplay's games are. But now it's anything. It's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be like striking the right guitar chords anymore. Now you're steering a mountain bike, or you're throwing a frisbee to your dog, or you're applying makeup, or you're doing cooking. Like, it could be anything. So
The revenue model question, that was a good one,
revenue. Yeah. So we're not monetizing yet. We're going to be monetizing a little bit later this year. So the first way we're going to be monetizing is through interactive ads. So all of our ads will be games, and you might not even realize that it's an ad. So you served up games, and we already gamified some commercials like that from last summer. Like, we gamified this Bad Bunny and Pepsi commercial. It's more fun as a game than it is as like a regular commercial. And then another way will be through the API model. So that'll be a B2B licensing model that we have with content creators.
My pitch feedback and concept feedback will mix into one.
Yeah.
I'm worried for you. You have such a good idea, and I can see each approach, but only as their own startup. A technology platform that allows other people to build this, integrate it. We have the patent, but we're going to create ads that are interactive. We're going to create interactive TikToks, but fueled by our technology, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that would be a hard enough challenge and startup on its own. Then there's a version of you that is more like a TikTok. It's a discover feed. It's a shareability feed. And you're trying to go to users and say, build this thing and share with each other, have a profile on our platform. And that is a startup that is hard in itself. It's not that your pitch isn't clear because you're trying to be all these things, but it makes me concerned to hear all these great ideas are pouring out of you. But as a founder, I can feel the different obstacles that'll hit you on each, and then distract from the other one and create, a little bit of that execution lift. But I think again, proof is in the pudding in terms of getting Cubes on board. You have a great story, but where again my pitch and concept feedback go is, man, is it too many stories, or is it like too stuffed of value? Which I know is a little interesting, but how do you feel about it?
I can live with it. Like, I get it. Like, again, recovering marketer, like I get it. Like, yes, I do think that's, that's go to market, ICP, and just thinking there are like many things at one, doing too many things at one time is a concern. It's like a yellow flag for me, like minor yellow is nowhere near.
Maybe even green. Maybe good founders are trying to.
My big thing is like, work your story. I mean, yeah, I made content. I made games for kids all the time who couldn't make any money at Sesame Street, and I did this all the time. And this why I was like, that's such a rich, fulsome, and it actually helps me understand some of your perspective on the product. So I think it's great. I would love to learn more. So it sounds great.
Great job.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Super interesting though, when you hear all of these technology platform, but we have a go-to-market that is a little more direct pitches. I feel like this happens pretty often. Someone comes up with, technology innovation on the user experience side and says, we can both package it as an API, as an SDK, whatever it might be, but we can also deliver it as the app and user experience. How do you deal with the quandary there? Or I don't know, maybe you again think it's not a big problem.
Here's my take as a founder. A couple of things. Like, one, I don't care. I don't care which one wins. It's perfectly plausible for me as an investor or advisor.
This early on, especially.
Just here's what I'm thinking about: setting up an experiment, and we're doing both, and it's resource appropriate, and whichever one wins, right? So
and then it doesn't matter if they do or not, as long as that other path is taking off.
As they say, this is why we play the game.
Yeah,
this is why we play the game.
Do you think that you have a better perspective on that than some other VCs because you've been like a pre-seed accelerator MD and you've seen people because I think a lot of other people go, oh, I want you to just do one, but maybe you're going, there's a proper way, and I'll help the founder properly experiment across these paths. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I mean, look, I two things. I would say it's more partially as a perspective as an operator, but the other part is I've been working 26 years in the last 4 in VC. The part that I'm trying to learn and become a better investor is to separate my own story from the founder. And in addition to kind of thinking about it from an operator test and learn perspective.
Not bring your prior baggage.
Yeah. And so I want to make sure that I do not have the market on good ideas. The reason I invest versus operate is because I think I can get more asymmetric returns and frankly, more personal joy watching founders do things I didn't even think about just through notions of constraint and order and a little bit of capital along the way. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question of because I'm an operator, I try and I know I have respect for other operators. I try to divorce myself out of my personal narrative, my personal experience. Like, oh, this is the only way that I bought ads at Vanguard when I was running agencies and stuff. Like, I almost discount that,
Right.
because of my experience.
I think that's a smart way to do, because otherwise you are only zoned into the things that you know if you rely on what you know.
I try. I mean, look, I'm human. I fall into patterns like everyone else, but that's what I've learned in the last 4 years, trying to divorce myself from the story and just look at the data. It's just data.
My last takeaway from that is, again, Shark Tank is now practice for the feedback loop.
Yeah,
That is.
I want to ask about the deal terms, because like I gotta watch this episode because
There's more story there we didn't get to. Yeah.
Because I have yet to say like, yeah, I would take that deal.
Yeah. Super interesting. Well, let's welcome our next founder up. Hello.
Hi.
A founder who was wearing the shirt of his company. Gotta respect it.
I feel
Always.
like you're on brand as a marketer. I love
Every
it.
time. Yeah.
What's your name?
My name is Jared Lerner, and I'm the ZZZEO of Nappr.
I love
Are you
it.
ready to tell us
go.
your story and get some feedback?
Let's do it.
You have a minute. Go ahead and tell us, what are you building?
Okay. Nappr is a marketplace that offers 4 to 10 hour day rates at hotels for up to 50% cheaper than the overnight rates at those hotels. We have over 1,000 properties in 26 countries, a lot of big name brands like Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, and Sheraton, but also a lot of smaller boutiques as well. We're catering to people who are on the go and maybe going through a hectic day, and they don't really have the means to rest and relax. So they're often chugging caffeine as a workaround and often burning out. We're talking about airport layover travelers, commuter students, medical workers, office workers, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, people on long road trips. All of these people could use rest and relaxation, but they don't want to pay for a full night at a hotel, so they're getting by with caffeine, pretty much. Our goal for the long term is to be in every city, on every street corner, so that nobody has to go more than 5 or 10 minutes for quality rest and relaxation. And we hope to get there someday.
All right. Good job.
Great job. So, road warrior, 2 million miles on American Airlines. Good news, I'm platinum for the rest of my life. Bad news, I'm platinum for the rest of my life. I've seen a couple of these. They're very capital intensive. It's a lot of feet on the street. What is your edge? Why what is your story, and why are you going to win in this space where others have stumbled?
Yeah, so a lot of our competitors have been around 8 to 10 years, but nobody really knows who they are. So we're looking at their marketing failures, seeing what they did wrong, and really trying to capitalize off that. Because when I pitch this, a lot of people think that we are the first company doing it, and we're not. So that's one place where we could really benefit. Look at where they failed and really try to capitalize on that.
Can I push you a little bit on that before I sorry to interrupt?
Sure.
But I think it's, I don't know that it's marketing failures that a VC would assume. So I also have heard this pitch even as not a full-time VC for the past however many years. And so I think this is one of those semi-tar pit ideas, which is a concept that I think is Paul Graham's around, like what a lot of people come up with because they feel the pain, but way too many people have tried it and they're economic reasons. Is it not unit economic and revenue to cost to COGS dynamics that have had prior attempts fail here? Like you said, they were marketing failures, but haven't most of these failed because it's not economical, it's not potentially profitable as a concept?
So our competitors haven't necessarily failed. They're around.
Okay.
They're medium-sized lifestyle businesses, I would call them, because they're not unicorns. So
What's like one of them?
there's Hotels by Day, Dayuse.com, Daybreak Hotels. There's a bunch of them, and those are the 3 biggest in the US, but there's a bunch abroad as well. We're trying to be the household name that everyone knows.
So why have the venture ones failed?
So those all have venture backing, those 3. They're still around.
Oh. I guess
Yep.
this is where, and I guess this is pitch feedback. I don't mean like you have good answers to this, but I think you need to embed a lot of what he asked and then what I added on top as part of your initial pitch, because I think so many people will have both of what we had as different types of a reaction of, we've been down this road before. I might not remember or actually know all the reasons this failed. He might remember those reasons better. But that's almost all I care about after hearing the pitch is like clear problem, clear pathway to supply side and demand side acquisition, but unclear as to why it didn't work. And so I need you to bring me to that clarity ASAP, because that's almost all that matters.
I'll give it to you. marketer to marketer, recovering marketer, like what do they miss? Like what do they miss in execution of marketing that kept them just to be a regional lifestyle brand versus you're going to be venture scale, nationwide, worldwide? What do you know that they forgot or missed?
So one way that we plan to differentiate ourselves is we would love to have consumers hosting in addition to hotels. And I would love to have a brick and mortar presence within airports because that's a very fragmented space right now. If you're on a layover or you're delayed, you want to take a nap in an airport, the options are not very good at the moment. So I would love to, be the household name in airports, a name that you can rely on and trust. Oh, there's a Nappr there. Okay, I'm going to book that for an hour. And none of our competitors do this. They only stick with hotels, which is fine. They're still around, but you can only go so far. There's only so many hotels, that exist. So if you stick with hotels and you just do that, you're probably not going to be where we want to be.
You just said two things that feel major to me. One is I want consumers to host. It's like the Airbnb flavor of this. And I feel like that if that's true, you need to be telling a lot more of that story. And then when you start to say the airport thing, I feel like we can all universally as a society agree plane travel through flight has gotten just like so much worse every single year for the past 6 years. And so if you go, hey, how does everyone feel about their abilities to get on a flight on time? Oh, we can't anymore? Well, guess what? We need to start to get used to it. And part of getting used to it is we need to be able to rest inside these airports. And right now, where you're resting, a bench, and we have a better solution. But, these are, to me, foundational narratives, right? Like these are part of your initial pitch because both of them were so compelling just as you started to speak that I went, why is this not 90% of the story?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you said, and I forget your traction numbers. You're live, right? You said you have
1,000 properties,
over 1,000 hotels on our
so
platform. Yeah.
maybe a way to do this, because part of me thinks it's kind of related to the last pitch too. It's like so many things. But I think a way you can hang your hat on traction, right? So, hey, we've deployed over 1,000 hotels, and this is what we've learned. We've learned, one, there's actually a market beyond hotels and traditional consumers. Two, and the number one thing coming out of demand is actually not to go anywhere, but just inside inside airports, and we're starting to make some inroads in this. So, and three, the messaging, how we reach all these people, they actually want a national footprint, like. And a national brand, and we think we can solve it through X, Y, and Z. I don't know the answers to any of these things, but I think there's a way to reorder the pitch. Again, similar to the first, take credit for the work you've done. And I think that adds so much more credibility to understanding. And then that answers the question like, oh, this is why I'm different than all those that have failed before me.
To iterate on that, to answers, it would be so incredible if his question to you had been answered. If you said, and this might not be true, by the way, in terms of the data. If you said, how are you different from all the past? Well, actually, the thing that we're noticing in all the initial data is 77% of our users are inside airports when they initially make the first query or are looking for our solution. And that is the thing that no prior player in this space has ever capitalized on. And that's going to be our go-to-market focus. And that's going to be the game changer for us is we have a vivid pain. We've recognized it in early data and we're taking advantage.
Or you think like regional airports where there are consumers that could one, that's a different novel way to think through. But two, I'm underwriting you. It's like, oh, this guy's different. Like he's thinking about stuff that, and this is probably one of 50 things that I've never seen before or thought through before. And we'll make bets on that, on a meta on that.
Not to attach this and then we should move to the next picture in a second, but I'm so compelled by something you just said. Brian Chesky's story at this point, I don't mean to offend him, is so overtold. But as soon as you said what you just said, but he talks about how they slept in the spots and tried it out and were traveling and dog fooding their own product. I wonder if you have a similar, kind of construction as Mike's talking about. I was like, oh, if you told some of that story. But the ZZZEO, good job. Thanks for telling your story.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great job.
These sorts of physical pitches where there's so much that you have to coordinate just in time always feel challenging on the spot to judge.
Yeah. I want this to win and I want, but having some context for the cemeteries before you, I think
Do you agree, by the way, with the feedback I gave there of like, if you have the cemeteries before, if it's pervasive in venture and in tech, you should try to build countering that as part of the initial pitch, or do you think that's a little too defensive?
No, I mean, every founder has to find the thing that you can either name them explicitly or you could like genericize. Like, look, here's where there's a lot of competitive space. Happy talking about them. Here's some broad themes. I think ultimately we're just looking for context and that you are aware.
Right.
Really, it's
you've educated yourself.
We're looking for self-awareness.
Right.
And I'm just trying to like genericize some of the things I think all investors are looking for, particularly at the early stage pre-seed level. We're underwriting you. The only thing I tell every founder I look at their deck is, the only thing I know is that whatever you just wrote me is not what's going to happen. That's the only thing I know for sure. At the end of the day, I'm just underwriting you. And so the more self-awareness you can show, the more humility, plus, you know,
product sense, operational ability, execution
and still
ability,
ambition. Like, Mark, you're experts in your business. We're just here to try and apply what we know from structures we understand.
Love it. All right, next pitch, next founder. I'm going to tell a story about this founder before we find out her name.
Okay,
we had an empty slot, and so I went into the lounge and I said, "Are there founders?" There was another founder in the crowd. Kudos to that guy too, who volunteered wherever you are. But said, "Hey, on the spot, I'm going to get on stage at the feedback loop, even though it's in front of an audience, recorded, live, all of those things."
YouTubed and the whole thing.
It's fantastic. What's your name?
My name is Morenike.
Morenike, are you ready to tell us what you're building and receive some feedback?
I am super ready.
You
Hi,
have
guys.
a minute. Tell us,
1 minute.
what are you building?
I'm 31 years old and I'm currently abstinent. I want to build a super large platform, the #1 platform in the marketplace, and a web series that surrounds my life for women and men who are practicing abstinence as well. I was over intoxicated about 3 years ago and I had to give up my son. He's currently facing adoption and he's in a very nice home. But during that time, I've been everywhere that you can imagine, and those events had led me to meeting other people who were also going through challenges, but also making it super fun for each other because we were like our support. So if I built a platform that showcased my life as an abstinent woman that goes to networking events, clubs, and things like that, and having an app that connects us all together, it would be so much, more productive. And I was thinking about a place like the Virgin Hotels right over here to have events and things like that.
That is about a minute, but we have so much to talk about.
So
Good
much.
job.
Wow.
Appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you.
That's wow. First, thank you for sharing your story. The amount of vulnerability you just demonstrated, I'm in awe of. I don't understand this network, but I understand it exists. What are your thoughts? I don't even want to talk about revenue yet. Have you started to run some of these events in communities? Have you started to put events together? What does that early traction look like for you?
So it's been very short-sighted because I didn't know how big it could be unless it was on a stable platform that already caters to people. I've had events that I've collaborated with others just to get to know people, and marketing on LinkedIn through like producers and writers and stuff like that to really just gauge how much more work I can do to have a stable app in the app store or a web series that can bring people, in large numbers.
Sorry, just to clarify, when you say stable, do you mean because finding this audience is hard, so you're attaching yourself to other...
Exactly. Someone that already has like at least 100,000 followers that believes in building that community of people that can meet each other, that just want to be abstinent or just want to network and mingle, hang out, have a mocktail or cocktail, and we can record that journey to build a larger community is what I was looking for, because it's a one-woman show.
Gotcha. For the non-abstinent world, what's the thing that we don't know or should about this community, and how do you think about that informs what enterprise you would like to build or event you'd like to build?
I believe in inclusivity and diversity in that group. I'm not one of the people that are like very strict on sexuality. I'm open. So the group would be open to people who have recently become abstinent or who have been long-term practicing abstinence to help other people who go through those times or just want to have a good time. Um, you wouldn't need to know anything except for that it's like a serious group. So I wanted to enable like Chat GPT or AI infused in the app just in case there were people that wanted to write in or have some engagement during times where like business hours are.
Question, it makes sense,
Yeah.
but what would someone who's not abstinent want to understand from a business and opportunity and demographic perspective? So, if you could share with us like, hey, here's why they need community. Here's why they need connection. Here's why it would be helpful for them to be in the same spot. What are the sort of things that you imagine, I guess the good stuff that would happen once you're flying, right? Once you have a lot of people on the platform or on the app coming to events, what good stuff happens out of the connection that you're building?
It would really just be a supportive space to have fun. I didn't actually think of that manner. I always thought about, the pressures of having sex or just the pressures.
So that's actually a good answer, right? The pressure might be something we discount.
Oh, was that where you looked? I was thinking just it was like an exclusive place for us.
No, I mean, here's again, this is where my product hack goes on. So maybe this. Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out in the spaces you walk in, what is unique and novel makes you want to lean in, and then how do you test that? So again, and I'm sorry for being obtuse, I don't know this world, but like you said the first thing, it's like, contrary to popular belief, absent people are a lot of fun. So we're going to throw a party. I mean, like, and that was the second thing. So you could test that. I mean, the simplest test is a party and those are things that are events that you don't need Chat GPT for. In fact, I think a Chat GPT party sounds horrible. But
do you mind if I just?
No,
it was
please,
just
go.
Over Memorial Day weekend, I was at a lot of parties and nobody knew that I wasn't. I dressed a certain way, so it was just testing the theory. I got a lot of free stuff like hookah and drinks, but the point for me was having ChatGPT for those hours where you wanted to chime in, because if you had an application that had a person's profile and ChatGPT wanted to connect to someone who owns the space, or something like that.
So this is where I think, the exploration of population and user and your ability to talk about it will help you fly even more. Because I think we're sympathetic to it because it's kind of like, oh yeah, I can agree that this isn't a served community. So I'm going to go, yeah, I broadly get it. But then I'd love to understand after that, you said they're fun, so we need to like showcase that more, enable them to have fun. The second thing could be there's a lot of outside peer pressure. And you could say something like, I'm making this up, you might not know this, but there are 500,000 people on a subreddit about abstinence asking questions, and we're going to tap into that need. They have so many questions. So by demonstrating kind of, hey, this group has some shared pain points, and if you can articulate that, that'll allow somebody to understand, oh, okay, then there's a clear path to solutions to those pain points.
I think the cool thing, again, not everything has to be digital. Digital can enhance certain things that you just can't find. So again, if I were to be your totally free CPO on this, like, I think you should throw a party, and I would like, and does that party sustain a Discord channel? Because then before you start like thinking through like what your LLMs and all this stuff, it's like, is there a there? Is there a community there that believes in this notion of fun? And also your users may teach you something. I think you even said the second thing, which I think is a really interesting product MVT to test, which is it is an inclusive group. We want people who are not absent to be part of the absent movement, right? That's a test to see if I think that's a second test you can run. Could you do a party, and then could that party sustain another channel in Discord? And then once you start seeing the interactions, then you understand what goes in the product. This is awesome. Do stuff that doesn't scale right now. Go to the spaces that no one else is thinking. I've never thought about this before. I would lean in there. I think you have a compelling story, and I think you should lean into story to build a community and have that community understand what make that community tick, and then productize that, weaponize that. Like, I would love to stay close to see what you're up to. It sounds really awesome.
Can I just add one thing?
Go ahead, one thing.
I know we mentioned inclusivity. I saw a space where there will be men and women who may have just broken up or had a fling, join in on that space. And just having a user application in the web store would just store that data of how many times and, what they need support in.
So many from dating to events to communities to content to media. There's so many different ways you could spin this. But I think you're at the point of just discover and learn and just and lead with your heart. And I think it'll be really interesting to watch the path you go down.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
That was good.
Wow.
What a story, right? What a story. I mean, and by the way, this is such an interesting thing. The story, I think, to say what you said at the end a little bit differently, it's like you're so early, don't let a defined product that you're uncertain about ruin how compelling your idea is. Because both of us were like, oh, we're listening and we're like, we get it. But then all the other stuff, it's like, hold on, let your users tell you more first. Let your community tell you more first. Because this is so, again, not being part, neither of us can say we're part of this community, but we immediately understood it's a community. Every community needs its place, its space. It might need digital solutions or might not. Tell us only that story for now while you're still this early.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that are relevant to this pitch. So the first is obviously we talk about founder market. I ask every founder 3 questions. Like 1, why are you starting this business? This is a dumb way to make money. Okay. 2, what evil are you vanquishing in the world? Like why do we need to exist? Like, and then 3, other than capital, what do you need help with?
Amazing. Let's bring up our next founder up. Welcome. How you doing?
It's a pleasure. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. How are you?
All right, grab that mic and tell us, what's your name?
My name is Abdul.
Abdul, are you ready to tell us what you're building and receive some feedback?
Of course.
You have a minute.
Let's do it. So my name is Abdul. I'm the founder and CEO of WePlan, a trip automation and booking software. We're currently building the 3rd iteration of our software, which is really being prompted by the conversations we're having with our current users. What we decided is we really want to double down and focus on the planning side of the equation. We've already built the booking software. We realize that's how we want to monetize. We want to really differentiate ourselves on the planning side of the equation. Think of a planner as someone who's been to Barcelona and they're a friend of yours and you want to ask them for advice. Or think of it as a concierge service, or think of it even as a travel influencer. We're trying to give them the tools to be able to build beautiful custom itineraries they can then share with their friends, their family, their followers, and long-term helps us become the big data warehouse for travel information. Sorry.
You're all good.
You're doing great.
I would say our big differentiations are, trying to focus on our recommendation algorithm. It's a saturated space, so we know we want to focus on user experience and the recommendation side of things. We're currently raising 600,000 pre-seed, and we've raised 110 of it already. So,
good job.
Thank you. Sorry about the fumble.
You're all good. Getting up on here is not easy.
So can you tell me more about the traction and the part? So if I understand the product right, it's about the itinerary plan. Like, hey, I just came back I did 9 days in Japan, right? I went to Tokyo, I went snowboarding in Hakuba, and then I went to Kyoto, right? And people are asking for itinerary. Like, what'd you do? Where'd you stay? That's the problem you're solving to make that. I don't even know if the word nano influencer would be like incredibly generous to me, like in all of my 6 followers, but like, that's the problem you're trying to solve, because what I heard you say is the booking is plumbing at this point, right? In terms of ATS, you can just like get all that.
Yeah, so that's one use case, right?
Okay,
it's the individual who just went to Barcelona and now their friend's like, hey, I'm going there. Can you, what should I do? And instead of sending them a bunch of links or trying to share your map profile with them, or even just searching it up yourself and wondering from your credit card what you actually did and then sending it to them, now is a tool so that you can see it in a beautiful way. But another use case is a concierge service who's already building custom itineraries for people, giving them tools to do so. Or again, the travel influencer who's currently charging for some of these itineraries, but they're doing it on their own from WordPress or whatever they're using to create these custom itineraries. So I'd say it's those 3 use cases. And again, there is the end consumer side of things where I just want to build the trip. We do have, we're connected to AI models. We have our own internal algorithm that will produce these trips for you based on the inputs that we're getting from the travel influencers or even the micro influencers. So we do capture those use cases. I want to talk about the local experience, which we capture too, but I don't want to overwhelm with too many different use cases. So
Where are you? So you're raising. Where are you? And if you've said it, I apologize. Where are you traction wise in terms of number of trips, GMV, whatever you're
Yeah,
using to
good
look
question. So GMV is something we're going away from. We've already got a little over 21,000 in GMV, over 3,000 users, maybe like 4,400 itineraries approximately as of this morning.
So this is definitely a classic tar pit idea. The amount of people who have built itinerary planners, and I've seen some good ones in terms of UX, and there are bad ones in terms of UX, and there are ones who've tried differentiated business models. I'm going to be honest. Your pitch did not give me an idea of how this is different. So let me be very specific and asking a question, then let's build on it. If you had to think, there's so many in the graveyard and the cemetery on this, how is yours different specifically?
Yeah, I would say the recommendation algorithm is the biggest differentiator, and our UX. We're trying to build something that seamlessly puts this together for you. Beautiful images, making sure you understand pricing and all these different kinds of things. Like if you land on our itinerary page, you can book a flight, you can book your hotel, you can book all your restaurants, you can book all the different activities you're going to be doing, bars and clubs, get reservations, everything at the click of one button. We have a book all functionality that books all of that for you. And we know long term that's how we monetize. I was director of product at a travel tech company up until January. And my main focus when I talked to customers who were hotels was we're paying these OTAs such large fees. So that's kind of how we kind of backed into this. I know that the business model is reducing the fee that you pay to the OTA for hotels. But how do we build something that consumers actually want, which is how we landed on trip automation and booking software.
So what do I want to ask the question first or give feedback first? Tell us more about the trip automation part.
Yeah, sure. We've tried a few different variations. This, again, the third iteration of our product is what we're focusing on now. One was just straight data intake. I thought that'd be the most seamless experience, give me as much information as you can up front, and we can build this really custom itinerary for you. Now it's more of in a prompting way. You can shorten it if you want to, give me very little information or give me all the information that you want. But again, it depends on the use case you're going after. If you are the travel influencer, if you're the concierge service, or if you're the person who went to the city already, it's really easy. You just search and you put these things together and then you send them to your friends. The other side of the equation,
I'm
which
going
is
to ask you the really annoying question.
Please.
When TripAdvisor built this or Google built this, right?
Yeah.
Can't they build the better version because they have all the data, the users, all the providers, all the marketplace dynamics?
Yeah, it's a great question. Google Maps is one of the APIs that we use. So we have the data that they have. We have a lot of other data sources too. And TripAdvisor has a product that does this. To me, we're constantly looking at it, and I think we have a better UX and a better recommendation algorithm. We also focus a lot on clubs. We also focus on booking. So that's something that they don't do too. So we do have some differentiation against them. And a lot, we know that this space is something that people are going to be getting into. We're just going to keep iterating and building the best user experience we can and best recommendation algorithm. And that's what we think long-term will differentiate us.
So when you say kayak and all the OTAs you mentioned,
Sure.
You probably can guess. I'm going to ask questions about customer acquisition.
Yeah, of course.
Those are pretty well funded, pretty entrenched. What does that look like? How have you acquired your existing user base, and how do you think that scales?
Yeah, most of it's been word of mouth, which in the best case scenario, that's how we scale, but it's never how you're going to get to 1 million users or anything beyond that. We've done some initial testing with every major platform you can think about: Reddit, LinkedIn, obviously Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and just trying to understand what our initial customer acquisition cost would be. It's pretty low right now, but I feel like it's because we have low followers, and a lot of these platforms really try to put you to the forefront so you can get some initial followers and get some initial users and then get that GMV traction. So to me, those numbers are not what we'll probably scale with, but we're going to keep experimenting, and eventually it comes down to also posting content or having content specific for each platform. So it's something that we care deeply about, and it's something that we've done exploratory work on. And once we're done with our round, it's something that we'll double down on and really focus on.
Yeah. Just some thinking through that and talking about that. You're talking about a marketplace. You said that's easy on, because look, the supply side, they're tired of getting ripped off by OTAs, but you got to address the demand side.
Of course.
The dad joke I always say, well, like from a marketplace, great, double the CAC for half the LTV, right? Like, and just that goes through. And I'm not a huge marketplace investor. There are a lot of people who love
such
marketplace.
A good little phrase. I've never heard of it before.
Dad jokes. I have 3 kids and a minivan. Dad jokes. And you've just said that, like, hey, like we've tried a lot of paid social, like, give me a little bit more. And as a marketer, like I would take, like, this is my intuition. This is what I've learned about my subset. Even if you haven't cracked it yet. Again, give me some self-awareness of like where you would, if you wanted to take my capital, use 600K, right? You're trying to raise, right? Like, what would be some of the things that you'd be testing? Forget the channel, but from a creative standpoint, I think that's important. And you should build that off of what you're learning from your customers that you have to date and distilling that into something that one day could scale.
Yeah. Or do you mind if I respond really quickly?
Can I tell you something first?
Please do.
So,
Maybe it'll help my response.
Well, okay, I'm going to be brutally honest.
Please.
It's not about how you pitched. It's about what you're building.
Yeah.
That makes it super hard because it's been built so many times. And then something he said like really tied things together for me. Like someone might or might not succeed in this space one day. And in fact, you might have just given a good pitch for this problem. Maybe this problem just sounds bad because it's been done before, but someone will figure it out, right? That's you're building in so much angst that people have of seeing this idea before. And so, sometimes that's just going to be like the thing you have to beat. But then if I wanted to articulate to you why the angst is so prominent, it's what he then said, which is when it's an idea that's been tried before, but I still have sympathies for it, but it still sounds a little bit generic, as in, okay, everything you said, do I believe you're doing the best job at it? Maybe, but it's still things people have tried in the past. The worry an investor has is there's no experiment that's going to make the A easy to fund. So even if I give you the seed or even the A, when you get to the B, those investors have the same tar pit problem. There's been a company that's gotten to the B and then raised and failed. There's been one that's gotten to the C. And so you have to be even more specific and strict in defining for an investor what things you're de-risking or proving. And those things need to be very specific and particular, because that's the thing you're fighting against. Oh, even if this round works, this is an idea that will get shellacked for the same reasons next time because we've seen it so many times before.
Yeah. So I guess how do you alleviate that stress? Because currently we have like multiple ways of monetizing. Obviously, booking is one of them. GMV, like you mentioned, doing
I don't think it's always monetization; it's growth, right? And we should go to the next page just because we've been enjoying this conversation. It's going a little long, but I don't think it's monetization. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's about look, the narrative is better. The places are like I can't get my
the user
content
experience. I feel like it has to be user experience.
You have to lean on. However, but you said how many? 4,000?
A little over 3,000 users. Yeah.
Tell me stories out of that. Go where you are. That is a lot of hearts and wallets.
Our product is so beautiful and the chat is so compelling at serving you images that our users talk to it even when they don't have the money to afford a trip. That's how good it is, right? Like those are the stories you need to tell.
Yeah,
but you have to move to the next one.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
That's right. Good job.
Tar pit ideas are tragic because I love founders who are going for it, but it's hard not to have the feeling.
Yeah, but look, if you look at dating apps, there's just tons. Even there's so many different ways in, right? And I think about tar pit, it's like it is a classic.
For everyone, we've said it so many times. I just want to redefine it one more time, bit badly probably, which is it's the idea of a lot of early founders, their first startup will be a pain point that they have, which is frequently a pain point other young founders or early founders have had, and therefore a graveyard of startups have been attempted in this space, and all of them fail for shared kind of unit economic or market potential reasons. And this is the tar pit that people fall into.
But here's the thing, though, tar pit problems mean there's big TAM, right?
Tons of people who want it solved.
You look at HubSpot, HubSpot,
another CRM.
Another CRM. Well, I have Salesforce and Pipedrive. But tar pit problems, if you can carve out the way, hey, we're going to build CRM for marketers. You can carve that out. So carve that out. This is a classic, another, 0 to 1, right? World's smallest monopoly. And that's okay. And if you can show a logical progression out of that and product improvements that build you into the mainstream, great. That is actually the reason why I would consider an investment, because you have a good way of building yourself out of a corner of the tar pit, to mix metaphors.
It's super challenging on the pitch side, but to your point, that doesn't mean it's not beatable.
Nope, not at all.
Next founder up. Hello. Tell us into the mic your name.
Hi guys, Mohammed here.
Mohammed is someone who came to the Founder Circle. For those who don't know, most Tuesdays I do a live stream with 2 to 4 founders where we do deeper dives, 20-minute chats about what they're building. He shared already his deck and his pitch with me. So we're going to see the implementation of feedback here.
Okay.
So a little bit of a harder bar, but someone who's extraordinarily promising. Are you ready to give us your 1 minute?
Super excited. Been waiting for it.
Awesome. Go ahead. You have a minute.
All right, awesome. So again, Mohammed here, super passionate about space, and I've always wanted to go to space. So I joined NASA Space Academy, where I led a team of 16 scientists and engineers to build a mission concept of Mars rover. Through that experience, I learned that space radiation causes satellites to fail. 38% satellites fail annually due to space radiation, and astronauts double their chances of getting cancer in space due to space radiation. So that impacts the mission duration, and it also impacts the revenue from the satellites. So let's suppose you're an operator, you would lose a lot of money. So today's industry standard is aluminum, which adds millions of dollars to launch costs, and the material decays 3 to 5% every year. We're becoming a spacefaring civilization, and we're going back to the moon. So me and my co-founder at Melagen Labs decided to make a space shield. We developed a proprietary
That's a minute.
composite.
There's so much more, but let's give you a round of applause.
Yeah.
Let's hear the close of that pitch.
Yeah, so we developed a proprietary composite, which is 2.75 times lighter. That means our customers save 63% of launch cost and 10% from total launch costs. So 63% on shielding launch costs and 10% of launch costs and 5% on total fuel costs.
So this, I'm out of my depth on the category. We do some of this stuff at Sway, and some space stuff where we're investors in Slingshot, but my question is, so how have you tested some of are these actuals or simulations, and then what does that look like in terms of getting into market, either through government contracts or other satellite providers that are putting satellites into orbit?
Yeah, great question. So we tested it in-house against cesium-137. It's a radiation isotope used a lot in the industry for space to test materials against radiation. And through those, we were able to match the efficacy to industry standards. And we've got validations from actual customers. For example, we've been working closely with senior systems engineer at Redfire Space. And we've learned that to have a strong foot in the market, we need to match the efficacy to aluminum, so industry standards, but also prove the viability and reliability of the material over the lifetime. So based on our proof of concept, we've proved that, but not that, we're also exceeding expectations and helping our customers save on launch costs and give them mass relief.
What have other? I mean, your story is amazing from going to space camp, being but what have other people missed? How did you discover this? Why was this missed for so long when there's so many dollars attached to it and frankly lives as well?
Yeah, definitely. So when I studied radiation shielding, I spent 5 months, and during that time, I was talking with material scientists, radiation engineers at NASA. So we were doing a lot of that cold outreach to learn about the basics of the problem. And we went against the unknowns, and we did the first principles. So because of having those conversations and hands-on projects, we were able to figure out a potential solution, and we tested it, and it came out to be better than what we expected. And there are a lot of other competitors. They've developed some other type of composite, but we're still better than them. If you want to send 1 kg to space, that would cost you around 15,000 if you want to use aluminum. But if you use cosmic radiation shielding's product, that would cost you around 10,000. But if you want to use our, that would only cost you $9,000. So for $15,000, you're looking at sending around 2 kilograms for the same amount.
Gotcha. I mean, so again, I am part of being investors to know where you have asymmetric edge, and I have positively zero on this. However, some things I would think through to you is, and other people in the room is, being able to explain some of the things when you're not in the same pocket, so that I can effectively refer you is something to think through, and giving me tropes and memes and things to understand. What I heard from that discussion about your competitive landscape is that it has to mimic aluminum. Your cost basis is better, and I need to understand and tuck into that a little more. And when I refer that to another investor, they'll be like, "Oh, well, do you know if it's this type of fabrication or that?" And I'm like, "I will not." So just understand sometimes when you talk to that your objective may be different. So just know that you're packaging for transference necessarily than trying to probably close me, because I'm definitely not the right investor. And that's part of something to know as you approach different pitches in the world.
How old do you think Muhammad is?
I don't know. Don't do this to me, dude.
Fine. Muhammad,
You can take a guess.
No, I'm not. I take the fifth.
Okay. Tell the crowd how old you are, Muhammad.
Yeah, I'm 18 years old.
Get the.
And for the company, it's something that I'm really worried about. People would just rule us out
It's a feature,
for
not a
being
bug.
young. But
Feature, not a bug.
yeah. So
Yes, it's a
we
feature,
have
not a bug.
we have the capabilities. I went through a very intensive accelerator program, TKS. It equipped me with the skills and mindsets to take on this big venture. And now we're building a potential billion-dollar company, and we have LOIs already. So our product is already validated.
So you need to say that I'm
In the
18.
pitch,
I have
yeah.
LOIs. The aggregate LOIs are what's the aggregate value of the LOIs?
So we haven't mentioned the values, but we're looking at how we're going to collaborate.
Give me a number. I mean, you have an idea of what they would be, and like so t-shirt size
or a project definition. I think right. If you could say like, here's what the LOI is for, if there isn't a number
typical
attached.
range. I mean, like, look, the companies you're buying with have established procurement processes, correct?
Yes.
There's established competitor and a fair market value associated with the solution, right?
Yes.
What's the solution of that? What's the sum of those contracts?
Yeah, would definitely work on that.
Yeah, and so I think those are like, for you, just say, I'm 18. I've dreamed of space my whole life. This is a problem I've seen. I've built this. It is better. Other people are missing out on the cost. And by the way, I'm just going to say XLOIs. We're not going to run the table, but if we did, we ran the table. It's $126 million of revenue in the next 12 months.
Yeah.
Okay, like, you have my attention. Again, this is the theme for tonight. Take credit for the work you've done as founders. Your work is amazing in such a ridiculous. I have an 18-year-old. Sean, if you're listening, bro.
You just made family
bro.
members.
I mean, this is my thing to founders. Take credit for the work you've done. I wish I had a more elegant way of saying it, but that's my feedback to you.
Yeah, definitely got it.
So let me tell you, when I think of it, massive improvement over last week. Great job. Last week was a lot of vision. And this time, though, he did not have to ask you the questions I asked you, if you remember, right? Like, so the first time he gave this pitch, it was a lot about radiation. And I wasn't sure, okay, what does this composite do exactly? What does a shield mean? Is this an astronaut suit? This time we didn't get those questions, right? So your clarity has dramatically improved. But, the whole concept of your pitch is on exactly what Mike's talking about, which is, what are all the impressive things, your understanding of the space? You're going to always beat the other person unless they're already an investor in the space on understanding. Your time to being a founder of impact, right? Like, you've achieved a tremendous amount, and that is a feature, not a bug, of your story. The ability that you have to have some of these relationships, probably because of these programs you've been part of, you're gaining access to rooms that other people probably would struggle to, and you're using it well.
Right.
So all of those being either an addendum right after a pitch, it doesn't need to be part of the 1 minute, and maybe some of it does need to be like, I forced you to say your age because I think that has to be part of it, right? You are doing so much so early, but I also think it answers some of his initial back and forth with you was about why has no one else tried this? And I think part of the reason is like, who's the other person? It's like a 47-year-old who's like not thinking about materials because they're kind of over that part of their career, whereas you're like,
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point. And I was at a conference where I got the opportunity to moderate panels. It was one of the biggest space tech conference in Long Beach, California, 3 weeks ago. And all of the companies presenting there were just led by, of course, experienced people. But I didn't see any young people there, and I want to be the one to replace it. And I have the ideas that those people haven't thought about it. And why? Because
They're
they
busy
don't
in
want to
some way,
change.
by the
They
way.
don't want to change. You know,
Yeah, there's that. But by the way,
Yeah.
the other thing you can say, because I think you might not want to offend. I don't think the two of us would get offended. For example, if you said, "What am I, 33 or something?" I don't know. But like if you said, "Oh, like these sorts of people are tired or bored or not innovative," you don't need to say that. You just need to say they're kind of busy with the projects they're on. They have a salary to achieve an objective, whereas I'm imagining still, right? And so one of the things I imagined and then tested is, hey, could this be better on cost and weight? And could this be better on radiation protection? And I tested it, and guess what it is? And I think this is a huge opportunity because as my generation grows up, we're going to be in space.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's just such a compelling story.
Again, I don't know if this is a narrative, but just as a, like the industrialization of space has led to incremental change. That is why we are where we're space travel for the last 3 decades. And you know what? Those people that are currently making these decisions were me 30 years ago. I'm this now. Great job. Sean, if you're watching, you got to do some stuff. Stop playing Valorant. I mean, I was working at American Eagle selling clothes, teaching tennis, and like that's what I did at 18. I thought it was pretty productive.
No,
Good
Muhammad puts us
God.
to shame. Good job. Well done.
Thank you so much.
You were going to make me say something. I was like, I'm not taking the
Well,
bait.
this happened to me again. He joined a live stream where we were doing this, and there was another founder who's of our collective generation, and both of us were like, "Whoa." You know, there's like this moment where you go, that changes so much about the pitch too. Like it's not only impressive just on its face, it changes the construction of how you judge, okay, what have you validated? Why are you doing this? What about you as the competitive edge? I would not be as interested in a person my age doing the same thing. I just
No.
would not find it as compelling for 17 different reasons.
No, I mean, again, one of the things in venture we talk about is that we're really evaluating what you learn over what you burn, right? And he's only burned 18 years. Like,
oh, that's another good one. What you learn over what you
I
burn.
stole that. I have to find out who took that from. But like, you know, we're looking at velocity and ups. I mean, and
yeah,
I mean,
rate of like velocity. There's such good phrases because what you're pointing out is rate of change, rate of impact, rate of ability to build, all of those things. Because you're going, you said earlier, the bet. You said it more eloquently than this, but the bet is on the person, not the pitch or not the concept.
At the pre-seed level, at the pre-seed and seed level, my personal view is I'm underwriting the founder. That is like, you know, you can show me a pro forma. I know it's made up. You can show me your deck. I know, and your product is going to have like 1 or 2 10x features, and the rest is going to be like, yeah, we just kind of like put it together. Like I'm underwriting you, and so that's the bulk of what. And just remember that. If you ever had any media training, there's a reason why if you watch Sunday talk shows, like everyone gets their sound bites in. Think about your sound bite. It doesn't have to be so obtuse, but just think about that is the vehicle, unfortunately, as a carbon-based life form.
When we coach people in job interviews, the way we say it is, what's the nickname you're leaving behind with different interviewers?
For sure.
And if you can construct that narrative too, this would apply if you're talking to many people at a venture firm. If you're interviewing across cycles, do all of them go back and say the same thing about you?
Yeah,
and have that nickname really make impact? Love it.
Awesome.
Let's bring up the next founder.
All right.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
What's your name?
Atul Savalia.
You have a minute. Tell us, what are you building?
So we have built two of us co-founder with the combined experience of 30 years in the credit industry. We are building Snowpay. Snowpay is basically a built of credit card bill payment where we reward our customers for paying their bills on time. So our current user, Andy, for example, has more than 5 credit cards, has means to pay, yet misses out on paying some of the credit cards simply because he forgets to pay. And that cost him about $1,000 or $2,000 a year. So we help Andy not only pay his bills on time, but also reward once he makes the bill payment in the form of cashback. And that's where we make money. We have identified 35 million such Andys for whom we are building a world where Andy has to come on our app only once a month, and yet his bills are paid on time, rewards are automatically awarded, and he has access to new credit
That's about a
just
minute.
with a one click.
Good job.
So, recovering fintech person, I'm ex Betterment, ex Bank of America, so I love this on a number of things. So, if I understand this right, it's sort of a credit robo advisor. You build the auto, the auto pays, and you arb the rewards as your take rate. Is that effectively the model?
Yeah.
Okay. So, tell me about. You said you found all these. I assume like some Axiom or some credit union search. Credit bureau search, like what does the acquisition look like in terms of that and the economics you've seen so far?
Sure. So the current app that we have launched so far, the acquisition is purely organic. We haven't spent even a single dollar on marketing yet. We have like a thousand in the wait list, and the wait list that we had, we rolled out the live version like 2 weeks ago, with a conversion of like 83% into our customer. We are talking about a 5-month-old wait list, where customer waited for 5 months for our product, tried everything available in the market, yet they ended up with our product after that. Yeah. So that's the current go-to market. The later stage long-term go-to-market is basically through the card issuers itself, primarily the card issuers who are focused on having their customers pay at least the minimum, because between minimum and full bill payment, they make the interest rate revenue, right? We have talked with already 5 such credit issuers accounting for like more than 6 million user base, and received a positive feedback from them on that part of the go-to-market strategy.
I'll let you. I mean, I can nerd out about fintech all the time. And disclosure, I'm an operating partner at Sway, and we're investors in Tally, so I have some view on this market. So maybe I should just defer to you.
Let me ask some of them and then bring it back to you to be the educated feedback on this one. So when we're talking about the per user that comes on, when you were chatting with Mike, he said, are you arbing the rewards as your financial model? What is a user's rewards worth in your average case? So let's take this waitlist group.
So on an average, user earns rewards of up to $400 a year.
Okay.
In which we make a commission of about $180 or $200 per year per user in the commission from the merchant partners.
How is that positioned to the financial services, to the merchant people?
To the merchant partners. So likes of Nike, CVS, or Uber.
I might have lost. Because the rewards are on your platform. And so you have merchant partners.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
for a second,
we have merchant partners who basically get a visibility to their.
What was the name of the company again?
Their campaign. Snowpay.
What?
Snowpay.
So they're receiving like Snowpay rewards when they're paying.
They're issuing directly the cash back from. Let's say somebody makes a purchase with a CVS. Then,
sorry. Initially, so user signs up and they're paying through Snowpay. Or facilitated.
They pay through Snowpay, or
they're getting Snowpay credit at that point?
No, they directly get so user signs up, they make the payment, and for the payment, let's say they made like $100 purchase with the CVS.
Mm-hmm.
Then we are exposing CVS campaign. Before that, we are also exposing CVS marketing campaign to the user, so that $100. Suppose CVS is running 10% discount on that, the user gets 7% cashback, and we get 3%.
So different merchants have different affiliate, and so if you look at anything from Rakuten to like each bank is running their own. I mean, it's Bank of America. We had Bank of America deals, so you would basically be front running some of that. So here's my question for you. Again, probably some meta feedback, like when you talk to someone in the industry, or I'm a recovering fintech person. There's maybe 2 different modes. This is a conglomeration of several existing technologies out there. So what hangs together as your unique differentiator that will build $1 billion business?
So our unique differentiator is from a user perspective, there is no rewards on the credit card bill payment. So that's from a user perspective. From a business perspective, our differentiator is like one is like the business model where we don't have to charge our users to a subscription fee to recover the data cost that we incur. Yet we make like 60 to 80% margin on the user. So that's one. And second is on the technology side, where we are able to uh, accurately get all the statements and the balance information for the user by partnering with various data providers.
Sure. I'm still waiting for the like. Look, there's a reason Rakuten still has like their name on. I think the Lakers jerseys, right? Like discovery is still hard in that space, right? So, if it's just aggregation, there's Platinum, there's Finkel. That's one problem, and then another problem is ordering and ordering the payment. What I'm trying to understand is the scaffold. Like, how is the sum greater than the whole of all the parts? I'm not. I don't get it. It's not accessible to me super easily.
Yeah, I mean, at an early stage, definitely we don't have the mode that we are looking for. But at a later stage, we have a mode primarily from like a network effect in particular.
What I would say is maybe in your pitch, I would say this, like, hey, for those that are hardcore fintech people who've seen some, consumer fintech stuff, here's some thoughts for you why we're different, 1, 2, and 3. And for those who haven't, like, this is why we're going to be, this is why we're going to endure. And so you can bifurcate some of those in there, because what you're experiencing are two different knowledge. I understand what you're building. At the same time, I think you feel some of my question, which is, no, I get it. You found some good pockets and heavy rip, and are just scaffolding them together and ordering them together so that you can churn off free cash, which I love. It's great. The problem is this: without any sort of like insight or protection, once you generate enough free cash without any sort of like reasons to be that people will use Snowpay versus when Bank America deals wants to like Sarah, that's even not around a thing anymore. But like Bank America wants to come sit on you, like what's the leg to stand on? And actually, and this is the last thing I would say, you should build your moat now. Your moats don't get easier; they get harder. The older, the more scale you get. So if you can't articulate it now, that is something I would go back and think through and talk to your users. It doesn't get easier, it gets harder.
So think about that pitch a little bit, but we do have to move to the next one. I know that you want to tell us more. Oh, good job.
Tool.
Good job. I think I'm just in my own head to.
No, it's funny. I know I want to save this for like big themes, but like, either we've had like things that are, and I say unicorns, I mean, not necessarily monetary, but like an 18-year-old who's thinking about radiation, a community for abstinence, like whoa. And then models we've seen before. And I think about, I want to get my head around thinking about like having self-awareness as a founder, where you sit in this, and both are great. But it changes materially how you may want to show up and present yourself to different investors. Having some context, I think for me, the notion of self-awareness and seeing the bodies before you seems to be a theme that I keep coming back to as I'm listening to different pitches.
100%. I can't wait to dive into that. All right, next founder up. Love the jacket.
Wow.
Thank you. You all look good. Hello, sharks.
Sharks.
Yeah, here we go. What's your name?
I'm Zikai.
Zikai, are you ready? This is also someone I've heard a little bit of the pitch before, so excited for this one. You ready to tell us again?
Yeah, sure.
All right, you have a minute. What are you building?
All right. Right now, we all want to have a really good lifestyle or really good working life balance. But for people who are unmotivated or unstructured, it's very hard to find their balance on themselves. And this problem is even more common for people who don't have a traditional 9-to-5, have all the time on their hands, they don't know what to do with it. And that's why we're building Gobi, the first AI lifestyle companion that help people to always stay in the good mood and also a balanced lifestyle by offering personalized morning briefings, suggested events throughout the day based on their schedule, time, goals, or even preferences, and also writing a journal for them to kind of recap the day. And the reason we're using AI is because I think the cause of the problem is very deep. It's like deep in our behaviors, emotions, and we need the AI to kind of really like learn and track and also adapt into individual personal lifestyles. And we're a team of people who are interested in AI, consumer apps, and we want to build this product
That's
for
about
other
a minute.
people.
So I feel some of this problem. Obviously, it's a crowded space. Can you tell me a little bit more about where you are in the product development launch cycle?
Yes, we are been building this idea for about 4 months, and we're ready to launch our third beta already.
Okay,
So we've been iterating and learning.
So what were the learnings from the first two beta, and who did you use, and what were the insights between iteration 1, 2, and 3? Can you paint me a picture of that?
Yeah. So for the very first product, it's very easy. It's just like SMS messages to people about like morning briefings, their schedules, and what is their goal, how to do those stuff. And I think one very important learning is we see people don't really talk to AI per se, because we have all the friends, we can actually talk to more people. So that's why we decide not to really make AI that for people to chat about, but it's more like an ambient experience for people to kind of getting nudges, getting this kind of useful information based on my life. And I think that's a part of the learning during the iterations. And also it's really about finding what we truly want to build. We kind of scope down from like goals, well-beings into this kind of like specific problem about like a problem for unmotivated and unstructured people to find a balanced lifestyle.
What's a specific example of a nudge or a prompt or something that I'm going to receive while I'm going about my day? Give me like the real feeling.
Yes. So actually, all the nudges are based on my lifestyle, my goal, and my schedule, more importantly. So a couple of days ago, I received a nudge during the day. It's like, hey, why not run alongside the Hudson River at 10 p.m.? And it may sound weird to people, but for me, it's like, oh, I actually like to run at that night time. So I will like actually try to think about it. And I do think there's more decision making along the way from seeing the nudge to actually doing the activities. But I think just having that kind of positive, let's say, hey, maybe you can make your evening more productive is a really good like experience for me.
So this is cold start, zero context, no onboarding, or do you integrate to like my email, my chat, my social media, and ingest that as part of your onboarding process?
So our onboarding is also done by AI. So it's like an AI. Of course, we prompt into like, hey, we want you to really learn about this user's lifestyle, emotions, personality, and we have a different questions based on how user answers.
So it's all interview based. It's not.
Yes.
There's no data onboarding or integration.
We do integrate like health data or emails or calendars just to learn schedules or learn more about people.
And then, okay, a lot of the product in your LLM is going to be around the thesis of Francer, right? Like happiness is a key to motivation and unwinding motivation. What are some of the things you're learning in that process that you're going to be using in future development to both A, get the ideas and validate that happiness is something, and then B, that you're actually creating activity, doing the unmotivated things. And then I got to ask you, Leon, how do you acquire unmotivated people, which is a terrible marketing problem.
That's a great question.
But I'm more about the product. Like, how do you? I would love to learn more about what you're learning in that process.
Yes, I think also like during the second and third product iteration, we're learning like if we just gave straight up suggestions, like people don't really care about it. It's like, hey, I'm just laying on the bed. Why should I just go up and like run suddenly? So we're thinking, yes, I very agree with you. Are saying happy or like always feeling positive is very important. So like on the new onboarding, we'll actually more focus on like about emotional check-ins. So instead of asking like, hey, what would you like to do in the weekend or during the night, we will ask, hey, like what are some activities that you will give you those kind of positive feelings, and then to kind of like have more emotional aspects in the nudges to kind of check in to say, hey,
how do you feel? Like, what's something you want to do that can give you that feeling to just help people to have a happy mindset? And we do feel like our end goal is not creating AI that just constantly giving suggestions or orders, but it's more like an AI help people to or guide people to find their actual flow and lifestyle.
What was the name of the product again?
Gobi.
Do you mind if I try to pitch Mike Gobi?
Go for it.
All right. Mike, I'm building Gobi. And what if I told you I think I could convince a very, very lazy person to actually develop and keep really fantastic habits that would actually improve their life and their happiness? A+, right?
Sure. Keep going.
The problem with prior attempts in this space, they come from two theories. One, the app or the experience or the service has a central theory of what you should do. Or two, it forces you to develop that theory through some sort of wizard where you say, remind me at 2 p.m. to drink water, remind me at 5 p.m. to run. Both of these are flawed for most people who are unmotivated or seeking motivation to actually partake in these positive behaviors. Whereas our app will tell the person who sleeps at 4 in the morning, actually a 2 a.m. walk is a good idea for you. And we're the first app that will do that, not by all telling everybody, hey, a 2 a.m. walk is fantastic, but by using AI, using AI-driven onboarding, AI-driven consumer habit detection trackers integrated with wearables to truly understand your life, personalize to your specific needs in developing these habits, and encouraging you to take the easier steps rather than the correct or academic right steps towards happiness and wellness creation. And that's Gobi. And what I'm most excited about is, again, our motivation is to make the unmotivated people develop habits for the first time.
Much better, much clearer. I still have problems and questions though. Like,
so many questions.
This notion of, and what is the novel data set? What is the novel insight? And what is the novel
so when you were
outcome?
asking those questions, I think this is where I was like, okay, before I even get there, what I'm most curious about is, because what you're asking is basically like, how are you going to understand that it's working? That's like where it all comes down to, right? Or it's the end question from most of your questions. And I think the reason yours would work if it works, this is another tar pit idea, as you know, and so you're coming up against a cemetery of priors. It would be off the fact that personalization, and that's the data question you're asking, what are you really personalizing off of? I think if that personalization is truly next level. And so you have to be articulate in the beginning of your pitch of, our personalization isn't just me saying personalization. That's why I went for that 2 a.m., 4 a.m. example. You have to be extreme. We get the person who hates broccoli to eat broccoli. How? We tell them to mix the broccoli with cheese. That's weird. But the point being, how do you give an example that makes me go, oh yeah, if an AI could do that, the app that forces you to do it at 2 p.m. won't achieve it. The app that gives you the wizard won't get an unmotivated person to create a great plan for themselves. But through conversation, through AI, it feels generic to say it that way, we can actually know that about the user and deliver them a customized solution.
Yeah, I guess part of me too, and this is, I'm looking for novel and because if you just interview cold start, then you have no asymmetric edge in building that LM anywhere else, right? So, hey, we are X, again, I'm just making stuff up. And then I was like, hey, we're X Garmin product, since you talked about fitness, we're X Garmin product manufacturers, and we've gotten access to both every single Garmin database of what people are doing for fitness and activity, and scanned and got permission for 1,000 or 25,000 social media profiles. And we've interpreted what actually gets people to exercise through this novel data set and understanding. And then because of that, we've been able, and just trying to build the particular niche of where you are.
I think your niche is the opposite though, but this demonstrates where I think the pitch missed. Your pitch, or correct me if I'm wrong, Gobi is specifically not looking for what 1,000 people do, right? It's looking for what one person does.
So I think not exactly, because also trying to answer your question is, if we're just because we see the quality of suggestions changing based on like if we gave more changes, people accept it. We track all those like clicks, like why you accept it, why you don't like it. Like I think the quality of suggestion will get better, but initially it's kind of like a training progress. So we're trying to build definitely this for more people, but we need all the data our own to kind of generate it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm getting at. Like, why do you have a head start, and why is your second derivative going to be faster than everyone else's? Like how, because getting manual compliance of clicking on, like it's a very slow way as a product to get feedback, particularly when you're in bed. So it's just something I would think through. And I know we want to think through on time, but I'm close to people who have this problem, and I understand this, and I want this to win. I'm a big believer in consumer.
Is it Sean again?
I'm not, not at all. Like, and I think it's a problem in this generation, his generation and the younger, like writ large. So I think there's a big space of the problem. I would love to learn more about getting focused on the particular product market fit on it, and but I'm really excited to. I'm a big believer in consumer. Like I think if you want to build I was having this discussion, we talk about it afterwards. Like, but I think people talk about the death of unicorns, and I think consumer is a big part of it, right? How many more vertical B2B SaaS plays can we look at? Like,
especially in this new market where that's not valued as much as it used to be.
Completely.
Great job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to make a weird analogy. Who in the crowd either has watched or watches Dr. Mike, the influencer? We have one. How about Dr. K? Okay, so these are two influencers I've come across over the past year on YouTube. Dr. Mike is like a mainstream doctor. He won like best looking doctor or something in 2005 and has built a YouTube career off of it.
Nice.
And then Dr. K, also known as like Healthy Gamer, is his brand, and he does these therapy style sessions with people in the video game streaming space, lifestyle streaming space. Anyway, two interesting influencers, and they recently did a discussion that turned into kind of a debate between Western and Eastern medicine. And the reason this is coming up for me is the debate's really interesting. To be clear, Western medicine is my vote. But the place that Dr. K was trying to convince Dr. Mike is in Eastern medicine, there's more of a focus on you. In other words, Western medicine is randomized controlled trial to say across 1,000 people what pill will work. But that doesn't account for the one person where for some reason that might not be easy to account for, you eating the cell phone will cure you of cancer. Such a weird example and wrong, obviously, but that's the kind of thing that he points to. Is in Eastern medicine, they go, what do you need? Yes, we can kind of look at what works for everyone else, but we're going to try to really identify what is it about your health, what happened in your life, what is true for you in this moment. And whether or not that's the right way to practice medicine is a different story. But that's what I thought where that pitch was going. I just want to share that.
No, I mean, one of my theses is on education for marginalized communities. And one of the big, if you're an ed tech investor, 10 of you in here, adaptive learning is a big part of it. That being said, they work on structures, and structures need to be adapted. You need something to riff off of, something to build that model. And that was where I was struggling to understand where the baseline for that was. Pure cold start, pure interview. I had a hard time understanding where, unless you ingest that with some novel insight or data, I had a hard time getting conviction around where that
edge
wins and
difficult challenge.
Pumps
All
up.
right, next founder up might even be, I think, our last one too. Welcome up. I thought there was a real dog for a second.
I know, I'm a dog person. I got two.
Hello, what's your name?
Hello. My name is Katie Joseph, and I am the co-founder and CEO of TeddyBot, which is a highly personalized AI companion for elders. I've spent my career studying how misinformation and emerging technologies impact society and negatively impact them through highly personalized algorithms. So this inspired me to actually see how highly personalized algorithms could actually help people be at their most flourishing. And my co-founder, Dr. Patrick Deegan, is a roboticist with over 15 years experience building and bringing award-winning robots to market. And so the TeddyBot amulet can actually be put on any object, transforming it into an engaging personal companion. And it's helping elders with loneliness, cognitive engagement, well-being routines.
I can feel my videographers wanting to get this, so I will pull this up.
Yes, so it can help. So it can help elders with well-being routines like medication adherence, movement, hydration, and it also helps elders record their legacies in their own words for generations to come. And we have one LOI from a home care nursing agency, and are starting our campaign to target adult children and elders themselves. And we've had a lot of magical demos so far, including one in which TeddyBot recited Emily Dickinson's "A Narrow Fellow in the Grass" poem with an 85-year-old man.
I wasn't paying attention.
Okay. Yes.
We'll hear more. We'll hear more.
More to learn about.
I love this space. Or end of life. And end of life is a senior care is a big part of what I think about in terms of
growing category.
100% market share, hopefully. Can you tell me about some of the clinical, how are you setting up the test and learns in terms of improving results around whatever, compliance around medications, happiness, depression? What are some of the key factors you're looking at as you enter this one nursing home or other pilots you have starting?
Yes. So we're going just for consumer as a well-being enhancement product first, because the market for medical tech is 10, 15 years. And we were talking with the person who runs AI compliance for FDA, and she said, this is not even a guarantee if you get the FDA approval that you'll get Medicaid, and you have to spend a lot on lobbying and et cetera. And so we're really just actually emphasizing how it makes people's lives better through just enjoying life and talking with it. And we have a few different trials that we're setting up with elder care facilities solely just to test it and see how it works with different types of elders with different types of cognitive impairments, but not in terms of saying like, this is a medical device. But one interesting thing that TeddyBot does do is it has an insight dashboard that tells elders and their loved ones, if they consent, and their caregivers, if they consent, saying these are the topics that were discussed. Here are some metrics like repeating yourself, confusion, and sentiment analysis, and other engagement metrics. So elder care facilities are interested in having that type of tangible data, especially home care nurses, because sometimes they only visit someone once every 30 days, but they're like, we would like better data onto when we should go visit somebody. So we're not yet, we're just walking that line, and down the line, we'll do more trials.
Hardware. So let's talk about testing, unit costs, and how I'm really curious how you decided on what this MVP was with regard to building this hardware, and then how you're going to iterate on it going forward.
Yes. So we started in the youth space, but we actually realized that we could go to market much more quickly through building with off-the-shelf pieces if we go to the elder care market. And the elder care market, our competitors are around $1,000 to $7,000 per unit. And so we're right in that space, coming right off the shelf, as opposed to doing manufacturing and taking on that big risk very early on in the company. So our cost of goods, the most expensive part of it is actually the base station, which is used to create a localized cloud using edge computing to minimize cloud costs and also ensure that users own and control all their own data. And so the highest cost of good is the CPU, but we will once we actually build up, we have a whole elaborate financial model, but once we actually build up and have enough revenue, we will go through manufacturing and the cost will be cheaper.
And then all HIPAA compliance and all the gardening on garden walls on the product. Since
Yes.
you've built edge computing into
Exactly. So, I mean, my co-founder is one of the pioneers of self-sovereign identity protocol several decades ago, and that's now been adopted by the WC3. So we both have a deep passion in terms of ensuring that users own and control all their own data, and believe that this is the future of embodied AI and collaborative robotics.
Last question as we get in, like, what's the go-to-market? So I just want to, how long did you build and then you got your first customer? Can you walk me through that timeline, both in terms of linear time and maybe treasure as well?
Yeah. So we've been working on this on and off for 2 years, but we just incorporated in January. My co-founder went full-time in November. We got our first LOI a month ago, and we are building out our marketing presence on social media so that we can actually direct people to the wait list to sign up. And we're specifically targeting, when we target elders, we really emphasize the legacy component because that appeals to a lot of people who don't want to have to do the, type out their life story. TeddyBot just naturally surfaces it through conversation. And then for adult kids, they really like the fact that TeddyBot can protect their parents from going down scam pathways or conspiracy pathways, and also give them real data because over 30% of elders don't live anywhere nearby their children.
what is the economics of this LOI? It's consumer in a nursing home, so it's just kind of like you'll go in an elder care facility. You're going to go resident to resident. In that is that what it is?
Well, that's a really good question. So with this nursing home service, they bought 10 TeddyBots, so it's $1,240 for a year because it's $1,000 per unit, which sounds very expensive, but again, is in our competitors, and then the yearly subscription cost. But we also see that the elder care facilities that we've otherwise been talking to, if they're high end, they see this as a potential luxury amenity because it's kind of like their concierge service. We just were talking to a group this morning, and they were saying like our concierge service receives calls, so many calls all day long, being like, "What day is it? What activities do I have today? Is my aunt visiting? Is my cousin visiting me today?" And they were like, TeddyBot could reduce all that personnel overhead and actually make it much easier for nurses and employees to actually just do their job, which they already don't have enough time to do. So we do see some benefit in the high end elder care space and the home care nursing space, because again, they can't visit these patients every day. And then otherwise we're going just for elders and then their adult children who are buying it for them.
Why are you saying you're a consumer company?
Well, because we're not really, the B2B play is more just for getting the data and getting the validation that it works with lots of different types of elders, but we're primarily targeting the elders and then their family members to buy it for them. Because most elders are not in facilities. 47% of people who are 40 to 60 in America right now are in the sandwich generation who are caring for young people and for elders. And they don't have enough time to actually sit with their elder parent and hear all the stories they have to say, especially when they're repeating. And so they see this as a really good value to actually ensure that their loved one is feeling heard. We talked to someone whose mom just talks to their dog all the time and, doesn't get any feedback back. And so we see that this is a benefit for all those elders who aren't in facilities.
I have a family member who's going through, we're experiencing dementia in the family for the first time. And I find this so compelling for a variety of reasons, going through that since December of last year. I might have missed it. What are you using from an AI or LLM standpoint?
Yes. So initially, this is just the early prototype. So we're using ChatGPT, but we're really moving. We have great engineers who are building out. We're drawing mostly from open source models so we can have that edge computing component when we're actually selling to people.
Answer the dumb question, but will still be asked of you won't the foundational models as they improve just allow someone to run this on a local device? How do you beat the fact that, maybe the ChatGPT app will be better at this in a year?
I think that especially for elders, having it off the phone has been found to be very effective because elders lose their phones and they also lose their vision. They can't read that well, and that separates them. And also the speaker isn't optimized for them hearing. Like a lot of elders lose their high pitch hearing, so they need to hear a lower pitch voice. So it's about specializing for that market that is massive and growing, as you noted.
So that's the answer I wanted you to give, because that needs to be part of your pitch. So I will tell you that 2 days ago, I sat with a product leader friend of mine who used to be an executive at Dropbox, who's raised money from other friends of his to just start ideas. And I had mentioned to him Alzheimer's GPT is like a thing I've been thinking about. And he did a user interview with me 2 days ago to go like, okay, why do you think this would be a thing? And everything I said to him was, look, the person in my family who's experiencing this unplugs the Alexa, doesn't trust the phones, doesn't like that there's a camera sometimes, always has these moments where they're trying to avoid the engagement, the speaker, the understanding. The recorded history is a key portion of this. I think your entire pitch, other than you have so much credibility in your pitch that you should keep, but every other part of it should be form factor, because then it's not about like what AI you're using, what LLM you're using barely matters, except it's interesting. It's good that you're mentioning edge compute, and I think that's important. But other than that, I almost don't want to hear about that at all. And it's all form factor. The advantage we have is how we're building around this. We'll always update the model that we use based on state of the art, but you need to understand this user, and this user has all of these problems that this solves. And that would, just bite.
Yeah. And one quick note is just the amulet can be put on a lot of different things, but what we've found with stuffed animals is they have high warmth, low competency perception. So like people are so pleasantly surprised by how smart it is, but they're not threatened by it as they would be with
They won't throw it in the trash. That's good.
Yeah. I think those are the things that, to highlight as part of the story. I would encourage you to think through and reconsider whether, just because it's a high TAM that people aren't in nursing, there's a reason why it's still addressable inside, and thinking through cost of distribution. Because because it will be, especially the way you describe the product, there is a bit of a land grab aspect to it. So thinking about how to get this in many laps as possible, since you picked the dog, I think is an important go-to-market thesis for building not just your business, but the product as well.
Yeah. And if we raise more, I mean, we're only raising 2 million right now to go off the shelf, go to market. If we raise more, we can actually go straight to
By the
manufacturing.
way, I don't think that's important as part of your initial pitch.
Oh,
I don't know if you gave it as part of your initial pitch or if I'm mixing it up. Oh, okay. Cool. Never mind.
But good confirmation.
Well, I say that because like I think it is cool to hear from like your go-to-market ability. That's a cool story to tell, but otherwise, the fact it's off the shelf or not is inconsequential to like the long term.
Yeah. The one thing is it would be much cheaper if we didn't go off the shelf first.
Right.
Yeah.
Great job. Great job.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wow. All right. That was our last founder. We'll do 2 more things.
Yeah.
Let's begin with takeaways. By the way, takeaway on that one is wow. What a product. What are your big takeaways for the night?
Yeah, I'll pick up where I left off, right? In that there are, I mean, again, this is kind of like Brave New World and then Tar Pit, right? So, and again, it's fine. This is not to say one is better than the other, but know what lane you're in. In the Brave New World areas, like, we're really asking, like, do you really understand the beginnings of go to market and how you can get your first customers and take your first customers and build passion around that, codify it, build a product people love, and then nascent aspects of revenue that just prove that this can even exist. And these are some of the questions we saw on this about, well, geez, do you really want to do consumer? Do you want to go like the, and then versus, when we're in the tar pit, it's like, look, be aware of where you are in the ocean and know, like, this, I'm going to carve this corner and I can go and swim in and eventually into the other. And think about the HubSpot example. It's not to say that there's a reason why there's tar pits. Tar pits mean big TAM. Big TAM mean big returns, things that could return my fund with one investment, which makes me very happy.
It's funny. It's almost like the more you're in a new product area, the less you have to talk about your product, because we're going to go, that's a new product. That's cool. If you're in a tar pit, you actually have to talk more about your product because it has to be differentiated compared to the cemetery.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Yeah,
we've seen it, used it, invested and lost money in it already. Like we so just I think the big thing, and I'll bring this back to a meta first principle, not too much. At the pre, it's about self-awareness. Both are about self-awareness, and that's probably where the Venn diagram between the two of those intersect. We're looking for founders who are self-aware and coachable, and because stimulus is going to change, macros are going to change, foundational models are going to change, but you're not. Or you are, and that's what we're trying to figure out early, and that's actually why I love investing at pre-seed. That's I think that the big theme is self-awareness, and I think it's manifested itself either in the sort of Brave New World genre or the tar pit genre, to steal your euphemism.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a great takeaway. I think I'm going to add to it and say, understanding what the next conversation is can be helpful.
Yeah.
Because everything that you're talking about, right? It's like, know where you are so you can give a great pitch. Know also what's going to come next, either so you can leave it for later or know what you're setting people up for. I think a lot of folks in thinking about the pitch need to understand the context of the people on the other side, what they're going to be curious about. Your great example with our Space Wonderkin is, I am going to go validate this if I'm going to invest in this space, which I may or may not. If I do, I'm going to go to a bunch of subject matter experts in my network. So you should give me enough information, make me dangerous with context, such that I can go ask those smart questions and then come back to you. And so understanding your audience, but also understanding the conversations that are likely to happen afterwards, can fuel exactly how you craft your pitch, predict what comes next.
Yeah, and if I could put some market dynamics on top of that, so the whole theme today is about self-awareness. Know who you are and where you are. Second, know who you're pitching. I think the third thing to know too is that to know what's happening as you think about graduating upstream, right? That all these things we care about, go to market, bread and butter, like, this is not 2021 anymore. And this is the conversation we constantly have with VCs, other GPs as well, is that these ideas of easy promotions they're long and gone, right? Like, when some of the credit hit, like, I called my founders, be like, look, what is your 36-month operating plan, and this could be it. Focusing on these really core fundamentals is something to think through. Not just, okay, so who you are, where you are, but then where the market is going to go next or not. Those are the self-awareness things I think are really important at the pre-seed level. And sometimes we forget about it. It's like, I just need to get my next raise. I just need to get my next raise. And I hear that, but there is value in thinking through, not all the time or being consumed with it. What does your series B, C, or D or secondary look like? You don't have to nail it and only do that, but you need to be articulated, at least on a napkin, so that you have an idea and you haven't developed yourself into a corner or hired yourself into a corner that you never to tailspin out of.
Well, I think this is where, I'll kind of give my final takeaway. It's a different time.
Yep.
And so tar pit ideas have a different challenge than they did, a few years ago. And I think founders who, maybe have been observing this most recent version of venture need to really think about whether or not they understand how venture is acting in 2024. Founders who are building something new have something to latch onto, which is VCs are looking for the big wins, not the small wins. There's no longer, hey, it's vertical SaaS. Like, okay, great. Like, am I really going to find a growth stage and a public buyer one day? Probably not. Okay, I'm no longer excited by verticalized SaaS, or it needs to be something fundamentally game changing. And so understand that the market has shifted, and therefore, whether you're in the tar pit and you need to really consider what that means for you, and how to compete, or you're in the new product space and you should take advantage of how many people are going to be imagining with you. That's the 2024 mode.
And I'll bring this back to the question you asked me. What have I learned from my own pitching? And we just talked a lot about the de-risking part of it, and I do think that's is an important part. I don't want to overweight that, because I do think that there is a great. I'm a adamant believer. This is a great time to start a company, and a great time to invest, because there actually is a chance for massive returns and game-changing thought, because we're going through this like unfun crucible. But I think this is where you can find, turn any video into a game, and you can find, things that protect people from radiation and terrible things I never thought possible from someone who's 18. Like, that's the cool part about this time of investing, and that's why still do the dreaming, and balance that with some of the de-risking.
Very brief final takeaways for not the founders who are listening, watching in the room, but job seekers. There's a lesson here around self-awareness that I give to people that we coach in job search that I want to make the analogy to make it direct for people. When you're answering behavioral or scenario questions, the first thing I encourage people to think about: do you have a direct answer, an analogy answer, or a proxy answer? Direct answer is, in my past experience, I can answer this question, I'm going to answer it. An analogy is, I'm going to tie it to something similar that's happened in my career. And my proxy answer is, I don't have an answer that's real, so I'm going to tell you based off of something I've observed or learned or read about. Here are the principles I know, or what I know is hard about this challenge. The reason it's important to consider which of these three things you have first before you answer is you give the best version of your answer as a job seeker. If you're honest with yourself, don't have a direct or analogy answer, give the best proxy. If you don't have a direct, give the best analogy, etc. So just the same self-awareness applies in a lot of storytelling. All right.
I love that.
Real briefly, what are our winners? What's your favorite pitch?
Jeez. Oh God, I forgot you did this to Jenny. If the thing that I may have to go where cubes went, in terms of thinking through,
Overplay.
Yeah, Overplay from the perspective of being able to see. I see that so clearly in terms of as a former marketer, about building engagement, recall, and the proliferation of gaming and micro. There's a lot of really compelling pitches. That's the one where I know enough where I think I could underwrite and think like that would be something that would be really interesting. There were a lot of really compelling ones, and I do, and I followed a couple of the founders here for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear.
What about you?
I'm gonna have to give it to 2. I know that's.
Oh, cheater!
Okay, I'll give a first and a second. I think I'm gonna give number 2. But still, again, as you pointed out, so many great pitches today. Mohammed building, the pitch to me, even though it still he's got a lot to work on. At the same time, I think he is imagining so much about our future, and I love that. And I think more people need to be solving these hairy problems that maybe aren't like the front of funnel. Like everyone wants to start a space company is going to go, I want to create a space factory. No, well, what about the stuff that goes in the space factory? So really, really excited for him. And the last pitch, I'm forgetting what it was called, but TeddyBot. The whole concept, again, I've been reflecting for months now on what I've been nicknaming Alzheimer's GPT, and the ability for a large language model application to be differentiated, not the model itself. It's really compelling.
Yep. I think the elder care market is huge. I mean, again, I started a funeral company, so 100% market share, 100% TAM, hopefully. So, you know, I think those are things and they're forgotten parts of our economy and populace. And I think it's an important problem to be solved.
For sure. Well, with that is the end of the feedback loop. So thank you. Round of applause to the founders, to Mike for all of the great feedback, to the team, both here today shooting and on the post-production side and pre-production side of things. It's been fantastic. Thanks for sticking around. This one went a little long, so appreciate all of those of you in the crowd. And see you next time.
Thank you so much, everyone.